It has only been a few months, and you have already found a mate. Lily asked as she looked Azioi up and down. The three of them were sitting around a table now near a warm fire, as the harsh snow fell outside. Yes, and I see you found a mate in the desert. Xion replied, eyeing Lily's protruding belly. Yes, please tell Nush the next time you see him that I am waiting in the mountains with his litter, and if he does not leave for the mountains, immediately kill him for me. Please. Of course, Xion laughed. But in return, I need you to spread a rumor for me among the local merchants. Tell them the pirates are planning a raid on the northern port. Snow thought about what Xion was asking of her. If I do, they will send all their goods south. That is the plan. Xion replied, spread the rumor a day after we leave, to give us a head start, and let us warn the pirates the merchants are moving south. Xion, do not tell me you are messing with the Pirate King. Our father's revenge is not worth giving your life for. Xion, you have a son, and if the king finds out who you are or what you know, he will kill you. I will be fine, Snow. Xion replied, dismissing her concern. Xion, dealing with the Pirate King is not like dealing with the clans of the desert. His reach is everywhere. And what if the Fangs and Claws decide to storm the pirate fort instead of letting the pirates raid the northern port? The Fangs and Claws have ignored or avoided the Pirate King for years. If they do decide to jump, it will take them days to get over the mountains. Lily stared at him for a moment, and Xion could feel her disapproval, but in the end she shrugged. Very well, little brother, if you are determined to keep tempting death, I suppose I will do my part. Lily gave her brother a warm smile as he and Azioi stood to leave. Azioi, please take care of him for me and little Oli as well. I will do my best. Azioi replied as she nuzzled Xion. The two of them set off to the northwest to find Xion, who had gone ahead to consult the northern elders. My elders, I have come to inform you of the condition of the dispute between my clan and the clan of the Red Clay Mountain. Xion stood before a council of purebred white wolves with a very low opinion of the mutt that stood before them. He was not even of pure wolf blood, much less sporting the white coat they held in such high regard. We have pledged our allegiance to the Fox King Xion of the desert, and our brothers have pledged themselves to the Lion King Roy. We have heard about our cousins of the Red Clay. The young lion himself was here not long ago, pandering for our endorsement. Hayden of the Eastern Hills has voiced his disapproval of this. He has stated that Roy is too power-hungry for his liking. Is it true our brothers in the south have split? No. I looked into it as you requested. The supposed Lake clan turned out to be a clan of large otters that call themselves River Wolves. They were sent to the east by the Sea King in an effort to resettle the Sea of Silence. I see. One of the elders said, followed by a deafening silence. Xion felt as if they were looking through him before they continued. There is change on the wind indeed. A half-breed stands before us as an alpha. Other clans in the forest use the name Wolf without fear. A lion claims the clan of the Red Clay. And our brothers in the desert have decided to bend their knee to a fox. It seems our brothers in the east are the only ones holding to the old ways. The Grand Elder said as he cast a look of disappointment to Xion. This fox respects the way of the Wolf clan. Xion replied, which Wolf clan? The Wolf of the North, or the Mutts of the desert? One of the elders barked. Both. Xion replied as his steps echoed off the walls of the frozen temple, with Azioi in tow, having sniffed Xion out. Elders, this is Xion, king of the desert, and wielder of Sententia's sword. Xion said, lowering his head and bidding Xion and Azioi to do the same. Xion looked up and read them one by one. He could not believe the things he was seeing. There were so many secrets here in the north. Elders, he has come here out of respect for our tradition. You would have us give the prophecy of the Alpha to an outsider? The Grand Elder asked. He bears Hayden's mark. One wolf whispered to another. Please, my elders, is it not a grand idea? Is it not what the North stands for? A snow-white peace among the clans of fur. Xion continued as Xion stood silent. A peace among fangs and claws, that is what the North stands for. A smaller female elder said softly as she stood and stepped forward toward Xion. We saw that you would be the one to unite two clans in the desert, Xion. But maybe we were wrong about which two clans. What are you saying, Mercy? The gruff old man called after her. The Fox are a clan of fangs and claws. Mercy growled back. And moreover, Xion is a son of the north. Xion of the desert stepped forward and kneel. Xion knelt and felt the cold stone begin to bite at his knees. Mercy placed her hand on Xion's head. She stood for a moment, humming with a palm on Xion's forehead, stroking the blue mark on his forehead with her thumb. She looked into his eyes with milky blue eyes of her own. She was blind. That was the first realization, and the second sent a bolt of fear surging through Xion. She wasn't looking into the future. She was reading his past. Then the humming stopped and she began to tremble. Her eyes went wide with terror as she removed her hand and stumbled backwards. He has freed the darkness. He has cast a shadow that will consume us all. The worst is yet to come. She shouted as she scrambled backwards and took on her wolf form. The elders all changed to wolves now and began a howl that reverberated off the temple walls. They were calling on their pack. Xion stood and drew his sword. He looked to Xion. Xion looked back at Xion's pleading gaze, then at the council who had scorned him. It couldn't be helped. He drew his sword and took his place at Xion's side as Azioi drew two small daggers. The three of them stood now back to back, staring down the white wolves as they circled looking for an opening. Xion swung his sword, now releasing the flames that had been infused in the sword, and burned many of the elders, causing them to retreat and regroup. He could hear the parking of snow under paw outside as the rest of the northern wolves answered their elder's call. Xion knew what he had to do. Xion, take Azioi and run. Xion growled as he began to release his control. He dropped his sword. His eyes turned a dark purple, and he could feel the beast take over. It was like he was in the back of his own mind now, burning in a fire of rage, only able to watch what his body did next. The biggest fox Azioi had ever seen stood before her, and as it looked from left to right, she dropped her daggers and froze as a feeling of unimaginable dread washed over her. Xion grabbed her up and threw her over his shoulder. He had seen this before, and he knew she had a right to be scared, and that if they wanted to live, their only hope was to get away while the elders kept Xion busy. The wolves flooding into the temple paid no attention to Xion and Azioi as they slipped by. Xion let out a bark that could be heard for miles and snapped his jaws at the snarling wolves. The wolves grabbed Xion's ankles with their teeth, and three of them tried for his throat. Xion shook them off with ease and caught one of them in his jaws, taking a bite that crushed the wolf's ribs before throwing it to the side. One of the limp bodies thrown by Xion's paw swipes hit the temple wall as Xion tripped in the snow outside, dropping Azioi, causing them both to tumble downhill. All Xion knew now was a thirst for blood. He hit another wolf with his paws and left it breathless, while four more made a lunge for his side, managing to do little more than tear at his fur. Xion turned and snapped his jaws, digging his teeth in deeply and tearing them away one by one. He was maiming wolves faster than they could react, killing 2 and 3 at a time. Azioi watched on in horror as the snow around the temple's entrance turned from white to red. The wolves that were able began to turn tail and run, but the beast would not allow it, pulling them back as if it had grabbed their shadows like a trailing cloth. Azioi sat wide-eyed in the snow, terrified, searching the monster's face for some trace of Xion as it stepped out into the light and turned its attention to her. Damn it! Xion yelled as he drew his sword and made a run for her. Xion began to approach her slowly, and Azioi began to approach him wide-eyed as if in some kind of trance. Xion stopped a few yards short of them, and Azioi reached her hand out to the beast as the two closed the distance between them. He growled for a moment, then sniffed at Ozio's hand. Then Xion regained control and fell into the snow, blood dripping as he struggled to catch his breath. Xion looked around in terror, seeing the highest authority of the wolf society laying mangled on the ground like seeds scattered to the wind. He drew his sword and put it to Xion's throat as Azayoi tried to help him up. She made a reach for her dagger, then realized she had dropped them earlier as Xion barked. "Xion, what did you do?" "Xion, they would have killed us." Xion replied. "No. What did you do?" Xion demanded again. "What did Mercy see that was so terrible she ordered your death? What did she mean by a shadow that would consume us all?" There was a pause as Xion adjusted his grip and gave a low growl, moving his sword away as Xion hung his head. "I freed the creator of the Never." Xion blurted out in disgust as he raised his head and locked eyes with Xion. Azayoi pushed Xion's blade away with a dagger from her boot and took a defensive stance between the two men now. She looked to Xion, unable to believe what she had heard, and Xion stared Xion down, seeing the turmoil in his heart and wondering if he would have to slay him as well. White wolves howled in the distance and returned with bears and leopards in tow, all baring their fangs at the three outsiders. Look at these wolves and ask yourselves, is it worth further staining the White North? Xion growled as he got to his feet and called his sword to his hand. The column of sand solidified to cold steel as he shifted his gaze among the beasts around him. The wolves stepped forward and collected their dead, each one snarling at Xion with disgust. "Traitor!" one of them had barked. The three of them backed away slowly, and once it was clear there would be no pursuit, they continued on their journey to the pirates' fortress. Xion took one last look at the carnage in his wake as the sky began to darken and the snow turned to harsh hail. "What have I done?" he asked himself as he turned away. "So that really is the sword of Sententia," Xion said as he recalled his decision to accept Xion as his king. "I was in love with a woman who fell, and I did it to save her, Xion. In that moment I did not care if the world burned. I just wanted to save her. I had to. It was wrong and selfish and foolish of me to weigh one person's life against the lives of the world, but I did, and it is done now. What will I tell my clan Xion?" Xion had no words. What could he say? He just destroyed one of the longest-standing orders in the world of fur. What if the North seeks revenge? Xion asked, still in shock from what he had just witnessed. "We will defend our home and nothing more," Xion replied. Xion considered the consequences of his actions now. He knew the world would never be the same again after this. How could it? Should he allow the man who released the Never's maker, the man who slayed his kin, to live? "What was that? What happened to you back there?" Azayoi stammered as she looked at Xion's bloodied back, still terrified by the monster fox. Inside everyone rests a beast that shows himself in our anger, our lust, and when we are forced to choose between life and death. It is why our ribs form cages. Those who wear this blue mark on their forehead house a beast stronger than most. He feeds on the moon's power, and if you are not taught to control him, he can take you. Back there I released my control. I let him take over. And only when my eyes see into the heart of someone that I do not hate, someone who does not hate me, can I regain control. That is what his mother used to devastate the desert wolves, Xion said as he recalled the sight of her, still suffering survivor's guilt, wondering why he was one of the few to survive the she-devil's wrath. They had to kill her because I was not there to change her back. That is why I bear no grudge against them. If they had not stopped her, she would have killed them all. You mean you did that knowing you could have been stuck like that? Azayoi blurted out, with tears in her eyes. No. I took a chance and believed that one of you two could change me back. And I was right. Azayoi wrapped him in a hug, staining her clothes with blood that had become matted and frozen as she pressed her cheek against his chest. Don't ever do that again, she whispered as she nuzzled him. Xion was happy to feel her warmth, but it was doused by the storms he could see in Xion's eyes.